it is time, my friends. We get to some stuff related to the podcast. So the cast of the past started as a concept because the three of us, like we've just been podcasting for a very long time, and even before that, we were huge wrestling fans, and that's what we bonded over. And we are super happy with what we've been able to cover. I mean, it's thanks to this podcast, really, that I was able to play a lot more of Ryan's favorite games, of Keith's favorite games. Like, the three of us have connected more with the gaming side, more so than the wrestling side. But we have always had like these couple of like, what ifs we focus more on this? Like, what if we dwelled a little bit more on that? So the podcast is going to be going through some changes, right? There are going to be some modifications, and it can go all over the place, from branding, maybe even including the name and the logo and everything, all the way to what we cover. But something that we do want to make very clear is we want to make sure we are a game-centric podcast. I mean, anybody that goes back to our timeline knows that we sometimes would talk about Breakfast Club, but then Silent Hill, and then Zelda,
we cast a very wide net in the current format.
Exactly. And it's because our initial vision, and we have loved that part, right? Our initial vision is, let's have a healthy mix of what we experienced growing up, as well as, hey, Fargo, that's a great movie, but we didn't watch it, so let's watch it with today's eyeballs and talk about that. The problem is that as a show, we know it's very difficult to be like, oh, you guys just talked about Mass Effect, and then you review, like, I don't know, just
Treasure Island.
Exactly, Treasure Island. It's like, okay, cool, that's nice, but there's not a lot of cohesion. So maybe starting off with like Ryan, where do you think, just based on some of the initial conversations, is there anything you want to comment about this?
Yeah, so as Keith said, we had a wide net, and I think we just want to narrow that down. And I think at this point, people who are regularly listening are video game fans, because I think for the most part, 80% of our content is generally video game related and kind of nostalgic game related. And I think we want to keep that focus, and we just want to hone in on it even more and take things in a direction where it's still us commenting on retro games and experience and games. Like, we will still be doing game reviews, but I think we also want to kind of take a more informational approach too, and reacting to kind of taking a little bit of a walking through history a little bit more defined, and then commenting on that. So that's not going to be every episode, but I think we want to start doing that a little bit more and more, and kind of taking a look at chunks of time and reacting to it as we kind of walk through it. So there's a lot of opportunity. And like I said, I think we're excited to kind of narrow things so that we're not just so sporadic, right? I think that's the big thing.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, even just as us as three people, like, we are lifelong video game fans, right? So I speak for myself when I say I always find it easier and more engaging to cover and more fun to talk about. It's not that I dislike when we cover other things, but I'm always looking forward to the video game aspects more. So as a host of the show, and by the way, if you've been listening from the beginning, or you tuned in somewhere in the middle, or even if you're just a new listener, thank you so much for checking us out. Thank you for being a part of this journey that we're on. But the thought of kind of leaning towards a more video game approach, and then bringing in other topics when it makes sense, because it's not a case of saying, hey, we're the video game podcast now, because I think that's something, even though we're going to narrow it down, we enjoy having that wide net because it leaves it open to different discussions if need be. But being able to focus on the thing that we enjoy the most is a very exciting prospect to me, while still leaving that little bit of room to deviate off the path.
Yeah. I think our choices for things like movies or outside of video games, it will be a little bit less random. Like, it's gonna make a little bit more sense within recent topics we covered, so it will fit together nicely, and hopefully there'll be a little bit more consistency, so that we hope if you enjoyed listening to this week's episode, that next week's episode will be of more interest to you than maybe it was before if we were just kind of a little bit random with our topics.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways that we internally had the conversation about, Mass Effect 1 was an episode. I'd like to use this one as an example. But if next week it's just immediately this completely different game, yeah, it's games, but there's a disconnect. One thing we want to do is almost like a series type approach with some things, right? Where maybe you take something like Mass Effect, but you evolve the conversation with topics related to it. It's like we want to have a more cohesive thing. And then having said that, the podcast may be taking a month to a month and a half break because what we really want to do is build that foundation. Instead of just saying, well, we've already talked about this, but hey, Keith and I had a random topic that we talked about. It's like, what if we just went okay, we're not going to re-review the games we've talked about, right? That's not going to be happening. But if we kind of start with a somewhat clean slate, what would the first thing be? And that helps, facilitate the next conversation and the following one and the following one. So something that we would love is for everybody to once again head over to acastofthepast.com/Discord, and you can just share some of your favorite things, what you've been enjoying. A lot of what we are making decisions about regarding topics are related to things you've already told us, we love that. So if anything, it's going to allow us to really engage in that more. And as I mentioned at the beginning, there's almost a guaranteed chance the name will change. We're going to try our best to have it be the same podcast feed or the same YouTube channel. Sometimes it's a little easier said than done, but we'll keep everybody updated. And the best way that can happen is the Discord because, social media, Twitter goes a lot, but there's an announcement section on the Discord. We can, keep everybody updated. Once we have the launch date, it's like, hey, here's where it's starting again. We really just want to have it be even more fun than we've already been doing it. And I think a lot of people are really going to be enjoying the ride, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the goal with the rebranding, as Juan said, is you won't have to change the feed you're following or the YouTube channel you're subscribed to. That is the hope. We may run into a roadblock, but we'll definitely let you know ahead of time if that's going to happen. And it might be a little bit of a slow transition where maybe the logo will change one week and then we'll change the name on YouTube or on the podcast app, just so you're not like, what the heck is this on my feed one day? Because, and you're confused.
Yeah, sometimes with some of those feeds, it's like we can upload something, but we can't guarantee, that's going to reflect immediately. Yeah. So there may be some confusing things.
Yeah, we'll most likely tell you the name if and when we change it, before we actually change it on the platform, just
Are you implying that we still don't have a new name, Ryan?
Are you implying that picking a name is one of the hardest things
we're still,
for us collectively?
Yeah. We're still brainstorming that, but we do feel like we want to change the name just so it's a little bit easier to remember and all of that. So, yes, we'll let you know what that is ahead of time so that when it pops up on your feed, you won't be confused as to what the heck this is.
And just to iterate one more time, we want to do this right. When we give it a new fresh paint of coat, we want
fresh
to make sure.
Paint.
No, it's a fresh paint of coat, baby.
It's a thing.
It's an inside joke. We want to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward and putting all of our effort into it, and that takes some time, and that takes a lot of behind the scenes work on our part to make sure that we are delivering the type of quality that, well, if you're a listener, we expect you to have high standards of what we do, and we want to make sure we achieve those standards. And so it might take a little time. We might take a few weeks just to get there. So if you don't see something from us, don't worry, don't fret. If you want, join the Discord at acastofthepast.com/Discord and say, hey, where the heck are you guys? But know that we're not going anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I would say, if you enjoy the content now, I think our reviews, our game reviews, like I said, those aren't going anywhere. And I think the other content, if you enjoyed the other content we did besides the reviews, I think that the direction that I think we're heading in, you're going to like our content even more. If you liked that, I think what we're going to be doing is going to be even better than some of the content we've done now.
Yeah, exactly. And like the final thing is, especially, I know I can speak for Keith and myself, is Keith and I, our main source of content that we consume is podcasting. So even before we had any of these decisions, it's like I listened to maybe 10 hours worth of podcasting on a weekly basis between different parts. So, it's been a lot of like, oh, this is really good. What if we mix this with that and what we're already doing? So I think that's going to be good. And then the other thing is, if you want to stay connected with us, it's not just about the Discord. In the case of Keith, he does have a Twitch channel at twitch.tv/ you got to say it right.
Brickhouse Hamilton.
Oh, love that. Love that so much. And then Mr. McNulty, I mean, that essay right there has youtube.com/game essay. So that is GAMEESSAYS. What would you talk about there, Mr. McNulty?
Yeah, I mostly talk about Legend of Zelda, but I sprinkle in some other Nintendo and Pokemon stuff. But if you're a Legend of Zelda fan, I think you'll especially appreciate the content. So
And the comments.
Yeah.
And the comments.
Who doesn't love a good YouTube comment section?
Exactly.
Mine's pretty good.
Yeah, hey,
but
you're doing good.
you get a channel to any size, and I'm sure it goes to hell. But right now, as a small channel, it's pretty darn good.
And then in my case, you can check me out on YouTube, youtube.com/PlayerJuan and twitch.tv/Mr. Player Juan. So we're not going anywhere. The feed may be going away for a little while, but rest assured, when we come back, it's going to be good. But that does mean this will be the last time we say a little something to close off the episode. So
Maybe
we gotta,
if the name doesn't change, then it stays forever.
I don't know. We might
changed.
still kill it. It's dead after this.
Okay, exactly. Okay, so people, the cringiest thing that we do every episode, we're doing it one more time, and it's going to be as unnatural as it has ever sounded before. This has been another exciting edition of a cast
To the
past.
Right, you took that to heart. I just felt the awkwardness. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing, and we are also available on podcast feeds. So search the name, click on the Sword and Stone, and enjoy a brand new episode every single Sunday.